As educated and spiritual women, it's really important that we create a lifestyle rich business, not just a revenue rich business. Of course, I love money. Of course, I love making money, but making money should never come at the expense of a truly wealthy lifestyle. I see a lot of women falling into this trap of over optimizing just one area of life. And I totally get it. I'm super driven, super huntress archetype. I'm very ambitious. I always want more. I'm quick. I'm fast. I love speed. I'm impatient. But I learned this lesson early on watching my mother, watching other people around me, that what happens when a woman's drive takes over and she over optimizes just one area. Now, in my mom's case, she was an immigrant to this country. So obviously she was in survival mode, but she never even made it to her 50th birthday. At 47, she completely burnt out and was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and she was gone by 49. And I loved my mother's drive. I loved her ambitious nature. I loved her entrepreneurial spirit. And I also inherited that, but I knew that I wanted a truly rich and wealthy life. And so I started my first business in my 20s with the help of my mom. And even then, I didn't really understand what it meant to have a lifestyle that was truly rich. And so I was doing too much. I was over optimizing one area. I was, they say like energetically robbing Peter to pay Paul. But I learned my lesson that I did not want to end up like my mom or like the women that I see around me. Beautiful, intelligent, spiritual women that are doing things that we have never had the opportunity to do, building multi-million dollar empires, building multiple businesses, building networks that, again, our ancestors would have killed for. But at the same time, they end up waking up in their 40s or 50s realizing, oh my gosh, they over optimized just only one area of their life. And now they feel kind of spiritually bankrupt in other areas. And so a truly wise and wealthy life means you're rich in all areas. You're healthy. You're spiritually alive. You're in a amazing divine union where you feel supported and you guys are growing together. You're building your empire together. You have the family that you know that you've always desired. Never let dollars ruin your divine union or business derail your birth plan. All of that needs your attention. I believe that there's 3 seasons of life in a woman where she is energetically more sensitive because more is required from her. And so in my Lady Ball's book, which by the way, as you see the balloons in the back of me, we're celebrating Lady Ball's 2nd birthday. And in this book, I shared with you this sort of like the ideal game plan in an ideal world, seasons of life. And I totally understand that it's not an ideal world. And what I wanted to do was provide my daughter a blueprint to follow. And I also gave her the source codes that, hey, if it doesn't always go as planned, you at least have the source codes and you can fall back into it. And this book has now helped thousands of people, this body of work in my courses. And so let this be sort of a guide for you. Don't treat it like, oh my God, I missed the boat. There's no such thing. You can always extract the source codes and use them in any season of your life. So what this book will help you do is realize that a rich life is optimized in different areas. Now, as a woman, we always will prioritize family. That's just how we are. That's how we're coded. But prioritizing something and optimizing for something are 2 different things in the way that I like to think about it. So what I mean by that is, like, for example, let's say that you have a career or a business. You go to the gym every day, you're minding your business, your finances, your career, you're taking care of your body, you're praying, you're spiritually taking care of yourself. So those are your priorities. What you're optimizing your current growth for might be dating for marriage. And so that doesn't mean you're going to suddenly stop working out. It doesn't mean you're going to quit your business. It doesn't mean you're going to stop praying. It just means that more of your energy will be used up in dating for marriage, which means at this particular moment, you're not going to be taking on business or career projects that suck all your energy. And then you're like depleted in dating for marriage, right? So that's what I mean. So when I got married, my optimization was building a strong foundation with my husband. As I mentioned earlier, there's three areas of a woman's seasons where more is required of her. Number one is marriage. Number two is motherhood. And number three is menopause. In these areas, we are sourcing so much more energy from within that they're not really areas where you should be over optimized in anything that will like require more capacity from you, right? So when I got married, that was not the time that I'm going to be going like full force optimization in my business. Does that mean I can't have a business? Of course not. I can have a business. I can have a career. But I'm not going to be like going all in that, because I know that the first couple of years of marriage are energetically very sensitive. I'm actually not even a big fan of women that get engaged and immediately launch like a relationship coaching business. Worst idea if you want to preserve your divine union. And I can make another video about that. Let me know in the comments if you would like me to go, because that's such a energetically sensitive time. You do want to be over like spending more time sourcing energy towards that, which means you're still working out, you're doing your business, you're doing all the other things, but more of your energy will be required for that, right? So for example, when I was having my babies and nursing my babies and nurturing my babies when they were really babies, that's not when I'm going to be scaling my business with like, a 20-person team. Because again, even though it sounds like having a bigger team will make things easier, trust me, you already know this. Most of you guys know this. That's not true, right? A team is a huge window open a lot of times. And I'm actually going to be making a video on how to manage teams so it's not such a big consciousness window open for you. But that's not the time to be doing that. I'm going to have a easier on my spirit business at that time that has like that requires less of me and generates more easier money. That's not when I'm going to be optimizing my life for that. So I hope that helps you understand what I mean by, priorities versus optimizing. So now in my life, where I have a 21-year-old, a 15-year-old, and an 11-year-old, my family is still my number one priority, but I'm not optimizing my life for family because my family is good, right? Like what we have together is beautiful. It doesn't need any extra work. It doesn't need any fixing. It doesn't need any management. Like it's good, right? It's flowing beautifully. And so now I have space to optimize for different areas of growth. That's what I mean by that. The other thing I want to talk about is false lovers. So false lovers is when we are using something that we love, like our business or, spirituality or self-care or even food. A lot of people do this with food as a coping mechanism, because the thing that we should be working on is hard, or there's something about it that's dense right now. It requires more capacity. So in order to hide from that, we tell ourselves, actually, this is just going to meet my needs just fine. So I'll give you an example of that. Let's say that you're in a season of life where your marriage is kind of crunchy or sticky. Maybe there's communication gaps or issues like that. Anytime it starts getting crunchy or sticky, you're like, okay, screw this, I'm just going to lean back, I'll just focus on my business. And you go all in on your business. Now, is it wrong to be focused on your business? No. Is it wrong to go all in your business? No. However, what you don't want to do is use your business as an avoidance mechanism to actually work on the things that require working on in your marriage. And this is a problematic for several reasons. One, as huntresses, we love our business. Our business is our art. It's a source of our creativity. Like my business is a whole spiritual experience. And so I don't want to tie my business to a coping mechanism, because what I've seen with clients is when they start doing that, let's say that their communication is not doing great with their marriage and they're pouring all their attention in their business to avoid that. Now what happens is that gets tied together in their brain and in their subconscious, and there's neural networks. Now when they actually want to work on their business, they unconsciously pick a fight with their husband so that they can focus on their business. But you don't need to do that. You can just focus on your business. You don't have to pick a fight. It's kind of the same thing. I had a client I was working with a couple years ago where in her union, sex had gotten coupled with fighting. So her husband, without realizing it, would pick a fight with her just so they could have makeup sex. But they could just have great sex. They don't have to fight. But it got coupled together in their subconscious. And so we had to unwire that. And so this is why when we lean to eating, overspending, overly focused on our business, but not realizing that when we're removing attention off of these very important things, they start actually getting worse. They start getting, what's the word in fitness? Like they atrophy, like the muscle atrophy, right? And so that problem is just going to get bigger. And now you're treating your business as a false lover. And I know our business is so delicious. I am obsessed with my business. And I don't want to sabotage my marriage or my parenting or any other area of my life to have a beautiful business. And so we do want to be mindful that we're not using our business as a false lover. Here is another example of this. A lot of times when clients come to me, they come to me for business growth. And as we start working together in different areas, this communication will shift to dating. And I'll start to see a pattern. I'll start to get psychically attuned to my client's timeline and her energy. And what we'll start uncovering is that she is going all in full force in her business, which is beautiful, but she's avoiding actually dating. What she desires is delicious divine union and beautiful family, a beautiful like babies and legacy and all the things. But every time she goes and dates, and let's say she has a bad date, or let's say she meets like a couple of weirdos on the internet, she's like, oh my God, forget this. I don't want to deal with this. I'm just going to focus on my career and business, because business feels good. Career feels good. She feels fulfilled. This thing over here, which she really desires, feels crunchy, is requiring more capacity. It's hard sometimes, right, to do something different. And so she'll keep going back into the business. But remember, a fully rich lifestyle, we get to have all the things. And so what we'll start uncovering here is that, hey, do we really want to be over optimizing our life for our business when we're using up our like most fertile years, when we really really want a family, when we really really want babies? And so these are things that we do want to be mindful of. Of course you can have a business and be dating and have babies and all the things, but in order to do that, you need to be really self-aware. You need to be conscious. You need to know how much of your energy you can give other things, because we don't want to be, again, energetically robbing Peter to pay Paul. One thing I really want you to understand is that everything is spiritually and energetically connected. By the time something actually manifests as a physical problem, it's already been a spiritual problem for a really long time. I'm going to share with you a very recent example from my Kainat Celestial Prosperity container. This is my close proximity group mentorship. One of the clients that came into this container came in for business growth. So the way that this container is structured, you can come in to what I call play. You can come in for polarity, meaning you want to build your divine union. Or you can come in for prosperity, which is your business. But it teaches you how to have all of those things. Well, she thought she was coming in for prosperity, for business. And she was working on her business in that container, and she asked me a question in Telegram. This is not even on hot seat, right? It's just a quick like Telegram question. And I respond back with some source codes. And this question was about her dad. She had a really estranged relationship with her father, and her father is now ill, right? And so she was asking me kind of like guidance of what she should do with this situation. And so I give her some source codes. Long story short, she goes and meets with her father, and they end up dissolving in a one close, loving moment. Years of heartache and pain and suffering in the relationship. And her relationship with her father transforms just from that one telegram message. But it doesn't end there. A few weeks later, she moves back in with her husband. Her and her husband were separated for a little while, and they start rekindling things. And my husband and I in Kainat have the opportunity to coach both her and her husband. What do you think is going to happen with her prosperity now? Do you see? She did not know this, but energetically, her relationship with the divine masculine, which started with her father, once that kind of resolved itself, all of a sudden, the manifestation of her separation from her father or from her husband dissolved. She came back together with her husband. That is exactly the thing that is going to bring in money, because dollars are made of the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And so we think that it's a money problem or it's a business problem or it's a client problem, but actually, spiritually, it goes back to something way deeper. That's why you need mentorship. And one of my gifts is psychically being able to attune to people's timelines. And if they're headed on the right timeline, this is what they desire, I can help them speed it up and get there faster. But if they're headed on the wrong timeline because they're using a false lover, then I can help point this out and course correct them. I would love to invite you in Overflow, the lifestyle rich woman. I'm currently enrolling for this last transmission of 2025. This is going to be 6 really, really potent transmissions. And currently it's on pre-sale for $111. If you're new to my work, this will be the perfect container for you to start with. I'll post the link in the description box. I think one of the biggest blessings of my work is that I'm not a business coach. I'm not a relationship coach. I'm a master life coach. And one of my biggest gifts is that I can look at your entire timeline. I can look at your entire timeline even before this incarnation and your timelines afterwards. And this is important because what can happen is there's a lot of shiny objects, right? Like I think women before us over optimize their lives in just their marriage and their parenting. And what happened is, like, if that marriage fell apart, they had nothing to show for it. Or when their kids got older and had their own lives, they felt lost. Well, women of our generation are like, okay, well, we saw that. It's like, okay, we don't want that. But that we're now over optimizing for business and career, which is also not healthy. What we really want is the lifestyle rich woman. And having it all means that we want to make sure that we are prioritizing the right thing and then optimizing the right thing, and not just over optimizing our entire life for just one thing. And so this is why I wanted to create a container and a body of work that actually took the entire timeline of the woman in mind, and not just business success and not just marital success and not just her being a good mother and not just her being rich. Because I think being wealthy requires so much wisdom, especially these days when we have so much conflicting information and conflicting opinions coming at us. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I would love to have you in Overflow.